Well, welcome everybody. We are live. We are so glad you joined us. Welcome to Relationship Matters. We're going to have another empowering conversation today, and I'm really excited about this one. What a story of restoration and reconciliation. You're going to love this couple. I'm going to introduce them in a few minutes. Chris, how are you doing?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing real good. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a few weeks. Like either one of us was traveling, and so we haven't seen each other or talked to each other in a while. But how have your travels gone? You had a successful travel business trip?
Always, it was a good trip to be in Vancouver. I had the beautiful sunshine. I had a dinner on the ocean. The ocean's a great place to hang out for sure.
Yeah.
It was a good week, but I can tell you this week I'm thankful that it's Friday, because you want to talk about straining relationships. Oh my goodness, it was a straining relationship week at work. So yeah, so it's always interesting, the ebb and flow of what happens every day and every week and everything like that. So looking forward to today, looking forward to our very special guest, which I know you're going to introduce in a second. So yeah,
it's it's been quite a few weeks, but it just shows you, right? Like you got to work on your relationships all the time. They're like you don't take a holiday from it or a break from it. I think it always takes intentional investment. Relationships aren't transactional. They're more of an ebb and flow. And so I think that's another good reminder, right? That we need to have that. So I just want to let everybody know we're going to introduce you to our guest today. We're really excited about this episode. Make sure you can ask questions, you can make comments, join this empowering conversation, because it comes right into here in the studio, and we can ask Sherman and Semise any answers that you might have, any questions you might have, they'll answer those too. So without further ado, I want to invite them right into the studio here, and we're going to make a couple of adjustments. And there we go. I want everybody, let me introduce you to Sherman and Semise Daley. They are an amazing couple. They're both deeply rooted in their faith from a young age, enduring divorces from their previous marriages. Upon meeting, they sensed a divine connection and married in 2012, only to face another divorce 4 years later. But guided by their faith, they sought Christian counseling, which helped them to reconcile and remarry in 2020. What an amazing story of redemption and reconciliation. Welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you on.
Thank you, Mark and Chris. We're very pleased to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was such an amazing story. When we met, we jumped on a Zoom call and got to know each other a little bit. But I love the story from the redemptive point of view, and just how even when it looks like it's over, it's not over. With God, all things are possible, right? So I really like that. So now you're certified relationship coaches, which I am as well. You're integral members of the Rock Marriage Ministry coaches team at your church, and you lead couples groups, conduct workshops, and contribute to marriage retreats, all guided by their commitment to help couples embody God's principles in relationships. That sounds, when I heard your life, other than our stories, that's exactly my heart as well. It's what I do as well. And Chris is, you may not know, but Chris has been my best friend for over 5 years now, Chris? I can't even remember how many years it is.
Just about 35 years.
Yeah, and we've had tons of our kids call each of us uncle, and it's just been a really close family, friends. And so when I thought this year I want to have a co-host, I thought, who better than somebody that I've had a friendship with for so many years.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So welcome. We're really glad you've joined us today. And although we're doing this live, it'll be played out over lots of different channels and places as the weeks come. And this is such an important conversation, because I don't know about you, but it seems like it's interesting. You got remarried 2020 and the COVID thing kind of revealed some cracks in relationships out there, right? Like it, I call it the great revealer. And I just wonder, could you just tell us a bit of your story let's start off there and just tell us a little bit about what happened in your journey, your healing journey, and a little bit about that.
So, like you mentioned earlier, we we were praying for the Lord to provide us a perfect spouse. At least I was. I know she was. And he did. He brought her. She came with everything I dreamed and asked for, and stuff I didn't even know I needed or asked for.
Ta-da!
So it was just an instant connection. I mean, I knew the first week we met, like, this is my wife, hands down.
Right.
And she was in Evansville, Indiana. I lived in San Diego, California. So she was even planning on a long distance relationship. We met on christianmingle.com, and we
Wow.
started communicating. And but long story short, 8 months later, we got married.
We were on the fast track.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everything.
We just thought we
everything
just
clicked.
knew everything. All the boxes were checked. It was like, you know what? There were a lot of other circumstances that kind of helped us to, hey, we made up our mind. Let's go ahead and we're ready for this commitment.
Yeah.
Right.
So 3.5 years into it, after many conflict and scenarios and situations, we separated, and a year later we got a divorce. And I'll talk from my space. It was real difficult because, like, when I went back to the Lord, what do I do now? She's everything I asked for and gave him. I mean, apart from the issues we're having. And he says, you need to learn to understand your wife. You need to understand how she ticks, to understand why she is who she is, and the struggles. And that set me on a path of learning how to understand relationships. Because to understand her, I need to understand what was going on in relationships, and I need to
Right.
understand her needs and what she was experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
I need to learn that she was hurt, she was wounded. I wounded her in the process, and this whole process of what we're going through was very painful. Very painful for me. I don't, they don't talk about the pain in divorce. Everybody talks about, oh, things aren't going right, just go out and get a divorce. Like it's, it solves the problem. And it doesn't. It really makes the problem worse. The good thing is our children were grown. So the separation didn't scar them like, when you're younger, it really does scar your kids. I don't care what anybody say. It's easier to fix it than to go through a divorce, because the
That's
overall pain.
so important.
Yeah.
That's fact, right?
Yeah.
People think that it's impossible, but it's actually less work to heal than it is to walk away and have to start all over again and try again with somebody else. And that's kind of what happened to you guys. You guys probably, my guess is you carried some of that baggage from the first marriages into this marriage, and that is so common. Can you just share maybe what were some of the things that you missed that hurt your first marriage? Like, is there a specific you can remember, either one of you, that led you down, like things that you might have missed from your first like that you brought into the second one that were causing the same problems?
Well, I can speak to that. You're absolutely right. We, like Sherman said, we think we're going to get rid of our problem, just get a new spouse, everything is going to be dandy, and that's what we thought. But the common factor there is ourselves. So we bought not only issues from our previous marriage, but guess what? Issues from our childhood that came along with that, and any other relationships that we had. That was our baggage, right? And so yes, we bought that and saw. I know for me, a lot of similar patterns that I thought was him.
Yeah.
But what helped was getting coaching, and understanding what was going on, where were the breakdowns, what were the common issues. And as humans, our relationships are very similar to each other, and we learned that what we were going through wasn't so foreign to other couples and to what couples go through. We just didn't have the skills to handle it. We didn't have the skills from the previous marriages, and we didn't have the skills for our first, when we married. So, after being divorced for the 3.5 years, we did seek professional help. We sought
Right.
to learn, and it wasn't to point out, okay, you're the problem. It was to seek, understanding, like Sherman said, and resolution for our issues. That really opened our eyes that there is hope. There is things that we could learn. How to communicate is a huge thing. How to handle conflicts, and all those things that couples go through. And as we learned, we were like, oh my gosh, if we had known this in our previous relationships, the outcomes would have most likely have been different.
Right.
But and so it kind of started us with the passion. More people need to learn this. We want to help others. It's so painful. You don't want people to go through the same things that you've gone through. And so we want to help other couples not go through the same pain that we have gone through, not once, but twice.
Yeah. So I just what was one thing? And you're frozen on the screen, but we can still hear you fine. So I'm having some tech problems. I don't know which side it's on, but everything shows okay on this side, but we can hear you okay. So we'll just keep going here. We'll plow through. Hopefully you'll come back live.
All right. Yeah, we won't do anything on our end.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah. Anyway, I was just wondering, like, was there something you discovered about yourselves, like, in that healing journey? Like, once you started getting counseling, was there something that you, like, I always talk about cause and effect, that there's things that maybe are going on beneath the surface that we don't know are going on, and then we get triggered by our spouse or our partner, and all of a sudden, it's their fault and whatever. What was something you discovered about yourself through that process?
Probably one of the biggest things, and I think a lot of people don't get this, okay? The frustrations that you're typically having, you're being triggered, and you blame the other person for your trigger. In other words, you blame them for your feelings, okay? I'm feeling upset because you did X. The reality is, it's you. You're doing your response is an issue. Or should I say your reaction? We typically want to change the other person so we don't react, when in reality, it's your reaction. And we don't stop and look, okay, so why does that get me angry?
Right.
What is it what am I experiencing, or what did I experience? What was the cost of these things? So in most relationships, we're not looking at ourselves. We're looking at the other person, and we think if we change them, the problem will go away. And the reality is, you're experiencing the emotional response. So guess what? Part of the problem is in you. And I think that's one of the things that we came to realization, and that's what counseling kind of help you do. They help you see the other person's perspective and help you see you, so you get a balanced view. typically we're only looking from our point of view. We only see the external. We're not seeing ourselves. We're not seeing how we're contributing, and we're not seeing what's happening with us.
Yeah.
Chris, does that resonate with you?
Well, first of all, I'm a highly reactionary individual. So my wife's sitting upstairs right now, and she's probably listening to this, and she's going, "Oh yeah, there's Chris." And the thing what's interesting what you said, Sherman, was you're absolutely correct on what you said. But the real challenge is, I think, is that when you're in a situation and it's continuing to fester and everything like that, is you to get yourself to think that think about you and what you're doing compared to blaming the other is like a monumental feat at the end of
Right.
the day. Add to the fact you get a guy like me who is, completely reaction. Like quickly, my wife went and bought. My son is visiting with us right now. They bought a barbecue and they brought it in the backyard in the yard there just about a couple of hours ago, and I was the barbecue I wanted, and they put it on the patio. And I'm looking at going, yay, it's the barbecue I want. And then, but the box is all mangled up. And so the first thing I go is, why is the box all mangled up? And they started laughing because in the car, they said, Dad's going to say, the first thing is going to say, why is the box all mangled up? And then does that trigger something from my wife or my son? I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is that it's great to know that, you have to look at yourself, but when you're in a situation, you never look at yourself first. So the thing is how do you end up trying to get that to change a little bit?
And see, I think, okay, unless you're aware of it, you're probably not going to.
It gets ignored.
Yeah, because it's your blind spot.
Yeah. And you think, okay, well, if they had just, made sure and got the right type of box, right? Or made sure that we project. I mean, it's been happening since the Garden of Eden. We blame other people for
this
things.
woman you gave me, Lord.
And, we blame God, right? So that's where help comes. We have to learn. These are not innate. We are selfish by nature, and we think it's someone else. We're okay. We're all right. But when you get really good coaching, it helps you to see everything. There's a little technique that we gleaned from a conference that we went to, and at the beginning of a conference, family life today, Family Life Matters conference, they tell us, okay, at this conference, as you hear things, I want you to draw a circle around yourself, imaginary circle around yourself, and everything you hear that resonates with you, think about it and plan to apply it to everyone in the circle. And so that's huge. So in that instance, it is looking introspective. And you're right, Chris, in the moment, that is hard. So what we do is we take our couples through scenarios in the past and help them. Okay, what was going on? What was the meaning behind that? What story did you tell yourself? What resonated with you in that instance? Because you know what? There was something in you is why that was triggered. We'll give you a try to do this analogy and hopefully I get it right. But say someone tells you, the sky is really blue, but the person tells you the sky is green outside. Well, is that going to bother you? Probably not. You're just going to be like, oh, you know what? They're, just dismiss it, right? Yeah. But say they say something like, you're in, like Sherman. I'll use him for example because you could see him pointing to his ear right there.
No. Beard.
Yeah. I don't know why
But
you're not live right now, like in terms of your video. I'm not
Okay.
sure if it's on your
Okay.
end. Yes.
it's
Okay.
Keep
okay.
going.
Well,
We can hear
you
you.
say you tell Sherman, your beard is gray. And if Sherman has an issue with his beard being gray, it's going to trigger something in him. But if it doesn't,
Right.
if he doesn't have an issue with that, then it's not going to bother him. So whenever there is some type of trigger, we try to help, and this is what we've learned, this helps us think about why is that bothering me? And a lot of times, Chris, it takes Holy Spirit to help reveal those in kind of when somebody said that, where did I first feel that?
Right.
And a lot of times, guess what? It goes back to childhood. It goes back to some experience. Once you kind of analyze the meaning behind it, the feeling behind it, where that came from. And it helps you when it happens again. If you help to resolve that issue, it's not going to bother you anymore, right? We believe that marriage is designed to help bring up those issues, to bring up the conflicts. And we know it does, because your spouse, who can rub you the best than your spouse, right? Your spouse sees your blind spots. We were taught, we believe, and we wholeheartedly have adopted this, that marriage, in marriage, God uses our spouses to help heal the wounds of our past.
Right.
And so our spouses are the best ones positioned to help us through that, not to beat us up with it, not to use it against us, not to be angry with it, but to learn how to help each other be the best people that God created us to be.
Yeah, that's so good, Semise, because I think that it's so important for us to understand cause and effect, that sometimes we do have blind spots, but who
Yes.
can we trust more to tell us that in love than our spouse, right? And
Yeah.
yet we get so defensive. We get so defensive. And I wonder, so if there's a couple now watching this or find it later and they're watching this, what I would say that what I'm hearing you say is probably the first step. If you're in crisis, if your marriage is in crisis, the first step is to stop and ask, what am I doing to contribute to it? Instead of blaming what the other person's doing to contribute to it. That could be the first step, right?
Yeah, you typically when we have a couple that's in crisis, the first thing we try to do is to get them to stop hurting each other.
Right.
And your spouse is being hurt and you feeling hurt, and hurt people hurt people.
Right.
So both of you probably hurting each other.
Right.
And the first thing we have to do to stop them from hurting each other. And one of the things that we try to get them to understand, your problem is not you.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a tendency to say, if he has a drinking problem, it's his drinking problem. No. If he has a drinking problem, that's our drinking problem, because the impacts of his actions is going to impact you as well as him.
Right.
And we have a tendency in our culture to, when someone has a vice, to judge them for their vice.
And identify them as that vice.
So, he's an alcoholic. No, he's a child of God who's struggling with alcoholic. There's a difference. And, and I'll be honest, we know we all have issues in our relationship. Okay. Things that we struggle with, that's difficult to deal with, that hurts and it's wounded. But the thing that we help couples to do first is to understand, no, that problem is not the person. They're dealing with that problem.
Yes.
And then we try to move them from once we separate them from their problem, now it's you and them against the problem.
Right.
the key that
Right.
we find
We, not me.
people to work as
As
partners,
a team.
as a team.
Mm-hmm.
But go ahead, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
No, I'm agreeing with you. It's me, not we. I mean, it's we, not me.
Right, it's we.
Right. And
We
this is
link
where I wish.
arms. We join arms. We are going to overcome this together.
Right.
Exactly. This is where I wish the video was on, because we usually do a visual where
I
we
know.
have.
So do we. Let me try something. I'm going to take you off screen for a second and back on. Let's just try
Okay.
this.
Okay.
Yeah, because I
If it
want to
works.
keep seeing Sherman's Mr. Right coffee cup, because that's
You see-
classic there.
Wait till you see her coffee cup.
Okay.
Now I've lost you all together.
Oh, really?
Oh,
You have, it's got to be a connection on your end. My end is
Oh,
all
no.
showing fine.
uh-oh.
Maybe
Should we refresh
can I
our page?
suggest? Yeah, I was just going to say refresh your. You could even go off and come back in. Chris and I will keep talking while you do that, because it would be great to see them, right, Chris?
Yeah, it would be fantastic.
I don't know what's going on, because you and I are fine, and that tells me it's not the StreamYard link. It's probably their Wi-Fi or their connection. Something's up with it.
Yeah. Well, the good
So we'll
news
see
is
if we
that
can-
the good news is where they froze, they don't look silly, like they got weird little faces. You know, they didn't have weird expressions on their face. It
Yeah.
looked pretty normal, which was good. So I appreciated that.
Yeah. There you go. So what are you thinking about what they're saying so far?
Yeah. Are they there?
They're not here yet. I'll let you know when I'm bringing them back in.
Yeah. Let's move it on. Hey, let's get in. Let's not get too granular and deep. There's lots that they have to unpack. I think let's start
Yeah.
hitting some things like.
See, they came in, it says device is not connected. They will need to connect their mic cam before they can add them to the stream.
Okay.
That's-
Well, let's
I
just,
don't know
you
what
know,
is that.
let's give them a second. This is the beauty. I live in the world of technology. Well, we all live in the world of technology every day.
Yeah.
But
It's
it's
your
my
business.
job. And this is how it goes. While we're there, Mark, I just realized that my little
Yep.
bio picture must have been taken 10 years ago, because I don't look that good anymore.
Your which picture?
My little bio picture that you have under my name there. I think that was
Oh,
like 10
yeah.
or 15 years ago. I
Yeah, no,
gotta change
I had
that.
to get an older one because I didn't see any ones that look good right now. So
Mind you, hey, if that's the picture of me, that's great. But once you get me live, it's like, oh,
yeah, there you go. Well, this is the first. We've never had this happen before where I
no, we
lost
never
a
had that.
guest.
And Adam, my son Adam, just left for Thailand right there. So that's why I
Yeah.
was waving away, like he was saying goodbye to his mother, and came and visited us for a couple of days and off to Thailand.
Wowzers. It's a big trip.
Yeah.
It's a big trip for sure. Well, I don't
So-
know where they go. They're trying to figure
So-
something out on there.
You know,
Go
one
ahead.
of the thing about that is that, I mean, when it comes to relationships, Mark, you see this every hour of every day in your practice and stuff like that, is that
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that people can do. Like, I mean, there's probably 3 pages of little check marks of things you can do and watch and be careful for in marriages and everything like that, or relationships and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Impossible to have that as a catalog of resources. And so the key is, you know, and what we're listening to Sherman and Semise say is, and you do this all the time, is where is it all coming from? Where is it all coming
Yeah.
from, right? Because once you
Mhm.
can get to that, then you can start to the next step. But then trying to band-aid it by just saying this and this and this and pulling, 17 items
Oh,
off the
here they are.
checklist of what you should, and so I
Yeah.
think that's a real key that needs to be understanding too. And I think we got them back.
Yeah, we do. There we go. Oh, now we don't have sound. Just fix your mic. while they're working. Yeah. Test.
Testing.
Beautiful.
Yep, we got you.
There you go.
Yay.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Oh, is it Mrs. Oh, Mrs. Always Right?
See, that's all, it's really quite simple. Happy wife, happy life. That's
Well, actually, this was a Christmas present from our daughter. And so we love it. It's like, yep, she knows us.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yes.
So Chris and I, while you went and fixed your tech, Chris and I were talking just about how we could have a whole long list of things that we got to pay attention to in a marriage and in a relationship. But how do you do all that on a day-to-day basis? But he was saying you got to understand the cause and effect. Basically, was what we were talking about. If we don't understand what's going on beneath the surface, you can have a list of we can actually share a bunch of to-dos today. We could give a lot of tips today, which we're going to do before we end this. We're going to give some real practical steps. We're going to invite you to share those practical steps. But if people don't understand that there's a cause and effect all the time in our reactions, in our relationships, that's kind of where we left off. It's going to be a long road, and it's amazing to me as I coach couples and coach people. I am always amazed at how that blind spot really does impact them at a deep level. And the longer you allow it to go on, the bigger it is. So coaching for you guys opened your mind up to that. It actually, you were able to start seeing your part in the play, in the sense. You started to see how you were impacting the other. And so I wonder, what are some of the tools that you've learned, that you've applied, that have enriched your relationship?
I can think of one, and we teach this to our couples. It's PATH. P-A-T-H.
P-A-A-T-H.
Well,
PATH.
we've since added it. We added one, P-A-A-T-H. And the first one is pray. Pray together every day and for each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's amazing to us how many couples don't pray together on a daily basis.
And they're not praying for each other.
They pray.
Yeah. My audience will be mixed. There will be some people that don't understand prayer, but even that in itself is a good healing journey, is just to start to pray and to start to tap into God. As in the 12 step, of course, it's higher power, but we know higher power to be Jesus, right? So, but yes, pray. It is true. Prayer, Chris, it feels awkward, right? I think you and I talked about this once. It feels awkward to pray with your partner for some reason, with your spouse, and I wonder why that is.
It's vulnerable.
Yeah.
If you're praying, we're talking to Abba, we're asking, we're listening. There are ground rules about praying with each other. You don't correct each other. You don't use that prayer time or that information against your spouse later. And I mean, and it is a vulnerable time. And but being in a marriage, the best marriages do have a high level of vulnerability with one another. That honesty, that openness. And so when you position yourself to pray to Abba Father, you're humbling yourself before God. Your spouse is seeing you humbled. And when you can pray to Abba for the things that are going on with you, and pray for your spouse, it does me just the world of good. I feel loved when I hear my husband praying for Abba to help me, help me in the day. He knows I've got something, help her today. And so, we pray daily. We have a devotion daily. if we're not able to spend a lot of time praying, we don't have time to do the devotion, at least we pray. We never leave each other in the morning without praying together. For some couples, that may be evening prayer. We have couples that do it at the end of their day. There has been times when we're really running late and one of us calls on the phone and we pray as the other one's driving. But we, to ask Abba to help your family, to help your loved ones, even to, the Bible tells us to pray for your enemies, but are you not going to pray for your spouse? So
Prayer.
that's the first.
Prayer, I would say prayer creates connection, right?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So we call it the daily path. So the second A is to appreciate one another. Show appreciation, verbalize appreciation.
Now, this is important because one of the hallmarks when you're heading towards divorce, okay, Goffman, I don't know if you're familiar with him, Gottman.
Yeah. Dr. Gottman.
Okay. He says that more than 50% of the things the other spouse is doing is never acknowledged or not even seen because we're blinded by our own whatever. But the thing is, appreciation is huge because the relationship starts to go south when we start to take each other for granted.
Yeah,
and
it's really
a
good.
lot of things, it does.
Yeah.
And every day, I don't care if you stop and just think, your spouse does something for you every day. Maybe she makes you breakfast. Maybe she cooks you dinner. Maybe she washes the clothes. Maybe she, or maybe he you put gas in the car. The point of the matter is, we all do something for each other every day. And to be able to say, honey, I appreciate you, taking out the trash, or thank you, I appreciate the meal you just made. That was good. It's the little things. We do a lot of little things to care for each other, but we never communicate it.
We don't acknowledge it.
We don't acknowledge it. So the second one is acknowledging.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So that one, and
the third one, it's another A, and it is ask for forgiveness and give forgiveness.
Yeah. Be willing to forgive. That's, a lot of times is, the person didn't do it right. They didn't do it the way you expected. Okay. Be willing to look past it.
It had a crushed box around it.
Yeah.
A gift of a barbecue.
Yeah.
I knew that was going to bite me.
Yeah. So, and then, being willing to ask for forgiveness. Honey, the way I said that, I could have done that better. I apologize. Being accountable, right, for our own actions, for our own, because sometimes we say things and you get one of our coaches calls it where you get into this trigger dance. He says something to me and it's triggered me, and then I'll say something back to him, and then before you know it, we're spiraling out of control. And right,
I call it the anger ladder.
Oh.
Yes, exactly. But it gets out of control. And so taking accountability for your own actions and not blaming the other one. So forgiveness is the root of the second A in the daily path.
Now, the next one is T. And T is to tell your spouse you love them. Now, for us guys,
every day.
Yes, every day.
At least once a day. Okay.
So for us guys is, hey, I told you I love you. You got a ring on your finger.
I married you, didn't I?
Yeah. Well, I gotta say it again. So I read this book recently for Men Only, and
Shanti Feldman.
Yeah. And it had a discussion about how women see, that statement, I love you. And ever since then, no day goes by when I don't tell my wife I love her. Because for the first time, I understood that for men, respect is huge. We get it. But we know just because someone respects us today doesn't necessarily mean they respect us tomorrow. Okay? It's the same way for women when it comes to love. When there's an argument between you, she questions whether you still love her. And we think, what's the big deal? I say, I love you, that's it. No, it's not the same for the female.
Some women, sometimes we wonder, are we still okay? Is this, are we in trouble? So that reassurance with the I love you, and especially when you're in conflict, and it's maybe hard, but when you're in conflict, just that moment, you know what, honey, I'm really upset right now, but we're okay. I do love you. Just give me some time. And we'll discuss this more later or whatever. And for the women, on the women's side, giving your spouse, giving your husband the time to process what's going on, because women, we're saying this, generalizing a lot. Not everybody the same. This is not every woman is the same. Not every man is the same. But this is generally average. The average woman will want to discuss it right now, and let's talk about it. And well, men a lot of times need time to process, and that may be flip-flopped. But you usually not have both of the same in a relationship. One is going to be that wants to take care of it right away, and the other is going to be, I need time to process what's happening here, and let me get back with you. And the important thing is to always do get back, and that's not 3 days later. That's, you don't want to leave your spouse hanging that long. And so the other the H, to finalize the daily path is hug and kiss every day. So there is,
hold on, 10 seconds hug.
Right. There is research that he wants. Okay, go ahead and tell me.
No, go ahead.
You don't. No. There's research that shows hugging has a chemical hormone release of the oxytocin in our brain. Right?
Yeah.
So when you hug your spouse, and you give and it seems like over time the seconds has been increasing with Sherman's story about this. 10-second kiss. Okay. It started out with 6 and then it was 8 and now it's 10. So, but it's a hug and a kiss every day. And so that's one of, and a lot of times in that, these things sound really simple and basic, right? We have couples that struggle with these, because they've gotten so much in a pattern of hurting each other or being wounded by each other. It's a work to start them on this path. And that's one of the goals. That's one of the things. And some couples do it really easily. And the couples that can get past whatever issues they're having and do it daily, because when our groups, we always check how you're doing with your tools. We have several tools that we have couples do, and this is one of the most popular and most used and most successful that we found is helping them to go on their daily path.
Excellent. So I'm going to recap that. So path is with 2 A's, is prayer, appreciate, ask forgiveness and give it.
Okay.
Tell your spouse that you love them, and then hugs and kisses for at least 10 seconds at a time.
Yes.
And so now I've got a question. Chris, how many of those do you do every day?
Uh-oh.
Don't throw Chris under the bus, okay?
I had to turn the volume down when he got to hug, because Lori's up there and she's a hugger and I ain't a hugger. As a matter of fact, it got to a point years ago where my wife would say, listen, you got to hug me. And I'm like, yeah. So what I did is I programmed, because someone said 7 hugs a day, blah, blah, blah. I programmed in my calendar to ding me 7 times each day. And then I think she thought I was doing pretty good until she realized I had it programmed in my phone to hug her. And then all the hugs got nullified. They were like, so how many of those do I do? I'll be honest with you guys. I pray for my wife. I don't hardly pray with my wife. What's the second day?
Appreciate.
Yeah. Oh, that I do good. I think I do good. I'm seeing if she's up there. Anyways, I think I do that good. Ask for forgiveness. Little tiny bit better. Not still the greatest. T is what?
Tell your lover.
Tell your spouse that you love them.
Lori, do I tell you I love you? Not as much as I'm supposed to, she says. and then hugs
and kisses. Hugs and kisses.
No, ever since I got off the phone, Diligent, it's like I'm not a hugger. Like I don't know what happened. I'm just not a hugger, and that's I know. We get into an argument. By the way, I don't know if you other couples do this, but we argue sometimes, and we get into fights.
Yeah.
What?
And so when that happens, we're going to stomp off into our corners and everything like that. And what's interesting is my wife will say, all you got to do to just make it all, to let us move on is just come over. Don't say a word. Just give me a hug. And I'm like, I'm in my room. I'm just like, like this. So the hugging part, I guess, what would I get? A C- on the path test, right?
There's always room for improvement and time to improve. And you know what? You make a very valid point, Chris. You make several points in that statement, actually. Number one, if you do it, who are you doing it for? You're not a hugger, right? But if you do it, you're doing it for your wife, right? And so when you do it,
I love that. That's a mic drop.
Well, hang on, Semise, does that mean I'm doing good?
Yeah.
Yes, when you do it, you're doing good. And you know what? I would say, even with the phone prompts, it still shows your efforts. So, ladies, give them grace. Don't worry about the well, I wanted him to do it because he loved me. Well, he is doing it because he loves you.
Right.
I wanted him to do it this way. Well, he's making the effort. Go ahead and give him that credit and acknowledge it. And if we don't do that, and granted, I'm saying this because I've had to learn the hard way. If you don't, then they won't do it. And so be appreciative, right? The other thing, Chris, is knowing your love languages. I don't know if you guys know your love languages. Well, the physical touch is not one of my top. So I'm like you. When we're upset, I don't want to hug. I don't want to touch you. And Sherman, his top is physical touch. He wants it. Come on, let me just hug you. I'm like, I don't want to. I'm like a porcupine. Like, do not touch me right now. Let's talk this out first. So knowing that, he does yield and he's okay with me not wanting to hug. And at the same time, when I get over myself, okay, here, honey, I know you need a hug. And I'll tell him that. We kind of make it a joke, because there's this physical touch, and I'll hug him just randomly. And I'm like, are you feeling the love? This is your love language, isn't it? We just kind of make it a joke, but he loves it because that is his love language. So I sacrifice my feeling of not wanting to fill his tank. So I want my spouse to feel loved. And that's a goal in our relationships. It's not to love each other. It's to help your spouse feel that they're loved
by you.
by you. I want Sherman to know that I love him, not just to tell him. I want him to feel that from me. Now, do we do it perfectly? No, but we're always striving to do better and to grow closer. And that's what we learned.
And if you're listening and you try, I'll be honest with you, this will take time to develop.
It doesn't happen overnight.
and I tell people, you in less than 5 minutes, actually, man, in a few minutes, you can do this. You can pray for him right quick. You can say, you know, I appreciate you doing X. I love you, and hug him. And you can actually do it in 2 minutes. But
a lot of people struggle with the forgiveness part. And that's, I think that's the hardest one.
That's the hardest one in there. And you can maybe think about things, you can think about it. And you don't have to do them all at the same time.
And it's not in any order.
So, but the point is for you to develop these things as a habit.
And to be intentional.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people, they want good relationships, but they're not willing to be intentional about it.
Right.
For somehow we expect that it's just going to happen. It's not.
Yeah.
There's certain habits you just got to develop. It's one of the reasons why we.
So good.
Yeah.
That's
one
so
of the
good,
reasons,
Sherman.
Thank you. One of the reasons why, we don't call ourselves, we're not counselors. Because Jesus says he's the wise counselor.
Yeah.
But we're our coaches. We're going to tell you the plays you need to run. This is one of those plays that we encourage people to do.
Yes.
Practice it.
This is the rep.
Yeah. And I know when I started telling my wife I love her every day, one day I said it to her and then I walked away and it's like, yeah, I really do love her.
You realize it at the moment.
But the thing is, I've been doing it out of a habit, but after a while, it begins to take effect.
Right.
Words have an impact on us.
Absolutely.
And I stopped and I thought about it, and it's like the thought. It's like, what do you love about her? And I start thinking about all the little things I love about her. And we got married because we loved each other.
Right.
And after a while, all the different things that come up kind of clouds why we're together.
Our coach calls them time release problems that start to surface when we're married, and they don't surface when you're living together, because that's still, you're still guarded, you're still, but you should have time release connections, time release. You're going to have time release conflicts. And this is our forte. We love conflicts. With James,
you can see why, though.
James 1, 2 to 4. When the Holy Spirit revealed this to us, we were like, oh my gosh, that's it. Conflicts are to be celebrated. James says rejoice when you have conflicts. And we're like, what? Conflicts they suck. But if you continue reading that verse, and I don't have it pulled up in front of me, so I'm just going to paraphrase. But he said, if you let it have its perfect work, if you let it run its course, if you let it do what it's supposed to do, the outcome is going to be maturity, fullness, completeness. You'll be lacking nothing, he says. Who doesn't want that in a relationship? And what also comes to my mind whenever I talk about that scripture, I picture and I remember Jesus on the cross. Are you kidding me? The ultimate conflict. But he let it have its perfect work. Now, did he say, Lord, if there's any way, let this cup pass? Yeah, he did, because he knew it was going to be hard. But he let that conflict have its perfect work for us. For all humanity to die on the cross, because he knew without that, there would never be the Holy Spirit being able to live and dwell with us. So we look at conflict in a whole different light. We look at conflict as something that it's not the problem. It reveals there's a problem. And so that's where we we approach conflict in that way and help couples to see it that way.
Yeah. Because
Well,
I mean, it
in fact,
reveals. Go ahead.
in fact, I always say that conflict's an invitation to go deeper. It,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
an offense to separate you. It's a invitation to connect you. And
Right.
so conflict is very important to learn how to conflict well, so that you can get to know each other at a deeper level. It invites intimacy. I
That's
always say
right.
intimacy, if you slow it down, is into me you see. So
Yeah.
That's
it's much better. This brings up a good break here. Let me just bring this up. We actually, folks, thank you to this wonderful couple. They're providing you a free tool, and it's to do with conflict. And so I'm putting it up on the screen, but it's also in the show notes. If you just go to their website, restoremarriages.com, and then /conflicts, there's a free tool for you there, to a little guide to help you walk through a conflict. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about it, Sherman.
Before I do, there's one thing I wanted to add about conflict. That
Sure. Yeah.
the benefit of the conflict, why most people miss it, is the benefit comes after the conflict.
right.
Okay. So the
Right.
conflict's gonna come up, we'd be arguing, blah, blah, blah. You aren't gonna solve it then. Maybe you do, but most of the times you don't. Usually it takes a little time, things roll over. When things are normal, you need to revisit the conflict,
Right.
because that's where you get understanding. Okay, honey, so yesterday when you got upset at me, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
And
We call it the locker room talk.
yeah, you talk about what happened in the scenario, and there's where you're going to learn about what your spouse is thinking, what you were thinking, because now you're not in a heated space. You can be open, you can openly communicate about what happened.
Right.
And then now you can talk about, so okay, how can we work on this so it doesn't happen in the future? See, most people never have that locker room communication. So the conflict never gets any better.
Right. You seek understanding in the locker room. What was going on in different perspectives?
Yeah.
So you learn to understand each other, and it eliminates the next one. But if you're not afraid of them and realize it's a natural part, no two people think exactly the same. So you're going to have disconnects. That's just part of marriage. It's par for the course. But what we don't do is we don't seek to understand and resolve it. That's where I think our downfall is.
Right.
And teaching couples, look, you can grow through these. It doesn't have to be a killer.
Right.
It reveals where the problem is. And 9 times out of 10, you realize it was your problem. It was not necessarily them.
That's actually how you can learn what your blind spot is by embracing the conflict and learning from it. You can find out where your blind spots were.
Absolutely.
Right. So to tell you the tool that we offered, I think you had the link up there a minute ago. A conflict guide, and basically what we walk you through the process of, say, something or someone you're having conflict with, to take a look. It helps you see your perspective and why it's bothering you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It helps uncover what's underneath that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it gives you some suggestion of how to ask for help from that person to help solve that situation. It takes you from a I perspective to a we perspective. Yeah. Which is really what you're trying to do. The whole thing, as we try to teach people to teach couples to work as a team, okay, which means you have to change your mindset. You have to change how you think about what you want or what you need. It's not just about you alone. How can we achieve X, if that makes a sense? So I encourage you to walk through it. It's revealing. It will help you think about things you probably haven't thought about, or why why you're reacting, or why you've been doing what you've been doing.
Yeah, and it if couples have difficulty getting through it or understanding it, they can always reach out to us.
Right.
I think it is it's a complex tool, but used correctly, the way it's intended, it is very revealing, because what we wind up fighting over is strategies to get what we want.
Yeah.
So, but we don't realize what it is we really want, what it is that's bothering us. What we need, it gets to the need underneath the conflict. And I mean, as you kind of walk through the tool, you'll understand better what it is I'm saying.
And
Because it's just, we're just not in this society. We are not accustomed to talking about our needs, understanding what we need, talking about our feelings. We're told from very young, oh, you fall off a bike, oh, suck it up, don't be a sissy, don't, whatever, right? And we don't know what we feel. We don't know how to feel. We don't know how to articulate what we're feeling. And then, are you kidding me? Need? What do you mean needs? Don't be needy. Oh, you're just so needy. Well, guess what? We all have needs. We all have the basic needs of all humans, male, female, woman, child, president, whatever, is to be heard, understood, and valued. Every human needs that. It's not a want. We need to be. That's why we have wars. Because
who better to provide that than your spouse?
Who better to, right? God provides that for us first and foremost.
Yeah, that's the one thing. That's
right. And then, but He uses our spouses to help that as well. Right. Our spouses should be a vessel for the love of God to flow through to us.
And I always say this: if you look back in your life at one person that you valued, or the person that demonstrated love towards you, I guarantee you they gave you those three things.
Yes, at least one or two of them.
Well,
if they did all three of them, that's the person you remember. They heard you when you spoke. Mm-hmm. They understood you or sought to understand you, and they valued you. They made you feel special. Yeah. Whether it's a parent, a teacher, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle. I can think of, my uncle was like, 12 years older than me when I was born. He was a young man, 18. And what he would do when I was like, I remember this, I was like 4 years old, he would sit and play tea with me. And we'd sit there with my little teacups and everything. And so when I look back, he made me feel special. He would listen to me. He made me feel valued, and he understood that I needed that interaction. And so, we need that from humans as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So look, at this hour has gone by so fast, but I want to I got to do something here. I'm going to switch places with you because I put Chris on the spot. I'm going to answer the questions too.
Okay, Gary, you got it.
So here's the path. Prayer. I pray for my wife, but we also pray together. We're pretty good at that.
Ding, ding,
appreciate.
Ding.
Yeah. I appreciate my wife, and I express that as much as I can. Ask for forgiveness. I could be better at that one, but I give it quite freely.
Okay, good.
Tell your spouse that you love them. Sandy and I kind of made a thing up years ago that we don't go to sleep without telling each other we love each other. So that's a good one. Hugs and kisses, not so good at those either. But I really like what you said, Semise, about like it's not for me, it's for her. And so I'm going to get better at that. But I will tell you, there's been times when we've had where she's really struggling with something. And that's another thing we do as couples. Sometimes we think that it's us that's causing the person's pain, and it's not necessarily us. It might be someone else or something else that happened that day. So instead of coming in and feeling defensive, when God healed my insecurity, what happens now is I'm curious. So I went from judgmental to curiosity. And so I'll be curious. So when I see her struggling, I don't assume it's me that caused the problem. I just go over and say, I look like you could use a hug. Can I give you a hug? And she always says yes. So I'm not bad at that, but I could be better at being proactive with it. So just there you go, Chris. I just wanted to answer those two, and make sure that I didn't just put you on the spot.
Well, you gotta be. I gotta see how much you gotta be. All right.
Oh, that's good.
All right. So, Sherman Semise, we're going to wrap this up. That was great, by the way, very practical. I love that path with 2A's. I think that's a fantastic guide for people, a daily guide. I think it would change your marriage if you followed that. Thank you on behalf of my listeners. Thank you for the free tool. Make sure that you take advantage of this, folks. Go and get that at, remember, restoredmarriage.com and then /conflicts. There's a link in the show notes, but I also put it up on the screen there. And make sure that you go get that tool. Just going through it is going to help you discover some things about each other that could take you deeper. If you're a young couple watching this, please, please, please apply this path with 2A's to your life right now. Don't hesitate. Don't wait. Start doing it now. You don't have to go through all the hard times like we did. I'll say us 6 because I'm including my wife and Chris's wife and you both. You don't have to go through all those hard things to learn the lessons.
That's right.
Please, please, please take the advice and the coaching from people who have blown it more than we've gotten it.
Amen.
And,
this is not just
to take advantage of this tool and take advantage of this conversation. Again, another empowering one. I apologize. The video for some reason froze again a while back, but you've been coming through loud and clear, and I didn't want to disrupt what you were saying. Although we would love to see your expressions and whatnot. This is the first time this has happened to me, so we'll trust this. Most people will probably listen on Spotify anyway, so we're going to be fine. But I just want to thank you both, Sherman Semise, for coming on and just being transparent, letting us into your lives. I'd love to have you back sometime. I think we could probably go another hour or two. We could go Joe Rogan if we really wanted to here, go for like 4 hours and talk about this subject because it's so important. It's really important that we see our relationships healed and our couples healed. So I always give you a chance. One last thing that you want to leave with the listeners, watchers. What would be the one last thing in 1 minute?
One last thing. I'd say this. Genesis 2:25. I consider the ultimate in marriage. It said they were both open. Okay. Well, it's not worded as, that's not open, but basically it talks about Adam and Eve, what God said about them. They were naked and unashamed. And without knowing it, that's what we're all desiring. Okay. At that point in time, it was a perfect environment. There was no sin. There was no shame. And incidentally, all our shame is associated with sin. But they were open and vulnerable with each other. They were naked. There was nothing hidden. And unbeknownst to you, wherever you are and you're listening to now, what you're hungering for is a relationship where there's openness and vulnerability within it.
And safety.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But it starts with you. Okay. Be willing and ask the Lord to show you how to do that in your relationship. And I think you'll be very happy and fulfilled.
Awesome. Great advice. Thank you so much.
I wanted to, can I say something, Mark, quick?
Please.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I always want to make sure that we acknowledge times when separation apart may be necessary. And those are times when there is emotional, physical, spiritual abuse happening. Right. We don't want to gloss over that. Those times, there should be a time of separation, so healing and recovery can be implement it in those instances from professional help. Seek help if those things are happening. There is help. There is restoration even with that, but it takes work. The other thing I wanted to mention about the tool that we're giving you is those tools are really, they're introspective work. They're not necessarily to do exactly with your spouse to start with. They're alone time. They're a lot of self-reflecting time. And you'll see it's in part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is definitely on your own. Part 2 is to be done on your own, to be implemented by you. So hopefully that makes sense once you see the tool.
Well, I'm sure the tool will speak for itself, but they can always reach out to you if they need to as well, and get a little more clarity. And so thanks for coming on. We're going to say goodbye and take you off the screen, but stay on so we can say goodbye to you after. Chris and I are just going to wrap this up. So thank you so much
for everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherman. Thank you so much.
So Chris, that was a good one.
You know, it was. I wasn't sure where we were going to go today. I didn't get a chance to really dig into Sherman and Semise much to see what was happening. So I was flying a little off the cuff today. But I mean, I don't know about the listeners, but I'm sure, like myself, things that they were talking about, tools that they were talking about, situations, there was a little bit of relation to that in my own life. And I'm sure it was with many others you could see. I think you say this, you know, a lot too, Mark. And first of all, relationships aren't easy, but they're the most beautiful thing that can happen to anybody at the end of the day. And nothing that is of value is real easy. It takes work, I think, you know, and I think relationships, we all know, are highly valuable. And if you're in a situation like what we saw with Sherman and Semise today, rocky roads, you know, not figuring out what's going on, you know, wanting to run, you know, whatever it is like that, I think it's important to know that if you sit down for a moment and say, I'm prepared to do some work and I'm prepared to listen and get some help, you know, even through people like yourself, you know, get some help. Sherman and Semise, these people look like this is what they wake up every morning designed to do in our on our planet. So I think I think we all know that at the end of the day, it's all valuable and stuff like that. I'm lucky. I just happen to have a really great redhead that puts up with me. So.
And does she ever? Yeah, that's great. And yeah, so if you can reach out to me, markgordon.ca. Also, I'd ask you, go to the website, subscribe to the newsletter. I've got great news. This Tuesday, Chris, you're going to get an email in your inbox, and it's going to have the first installment of my newsletter, revamped, reimagined. And so go over there. If you haven't yet, go to my website, subscribe to my newsletter, and you'll be getting regular tips and ideas and thoughts about how to improve your relationship. I might even, maybe the next one, I'll throw in that free tool from Sherman and Semise so that you can have it, and then you can connect with them if you want help from them. So just want to invite you to go and subscribe to my newsletter, and it's going to actually be active now. So for those that have subscribed and wondered where the heck it is, I apologize, but it's going to be coming out starting Tuesday. I finally got the technology working, and so we're going to do that. So thanks, Chris. Thank you for everybody that stayed with us and watched this with us, and we just really appreciate you. And we'll be back next Friday with another episode. Chris and I are going to have that discussion we've been trying to have. We're going to do a little review over the last 6. Today's the 7th episode of this season. We're going to do a little review and just banter a little bit back and forth about what we've learned so far. So we invite you to come and join us for that. We'll talk to you then. And thanks, Chris. See you later.
Thanks, Mark. See you, everybody.